Welcome to Functionally Speaking, the podcast where two clinicians share one brain cell and way too many opinions.
I'm Laura, your mineral-obsessed dietitian who gets fired up about gut health, metabolism, and fertility, with enough sass to keep it interesting and enough nuance to keep it real.
And I'm Danielle, a physician assistant obsessed with gut health, hormones, and calling out bullshit.
We're here for the nuance, the hot takes, the facts your certification skipped over, and the occasional spiral into chaos.
If you're a health coach, practitioner, or clinician who's slightly functional, just like our mitochondria in our recording process, you're in the right place.
We're not here to sugarcoat the science or pretend there's one right way to do this work. We're doing it our way, unfiltered, slightly feral, and always with love for the humans we serve. Let's get into it.
Woo. We're really starting the podcast that way. Hi, hello, welcome back to Functionally Speaking, the clinical pod that spirals responsibly, sponsored by the two humans in front of you, aka Unconventional Collaborative. If you are a practitioner, coach, or trainer, and if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are. And if you're not a member yet, you need to go check us out at unconventionalcollaborative.com. What are you even doing? The amount of value that we're bringing this year is just so insane. The guest speakers and founders calls and community. It's so great. So
we've already had three amazing calls and it's only February 13th.
Yeah. And when you join, you get access to all of our prior calls too, which I think we have about 50 in there now. So it's, I know. It's so wild to think that will this September be 2 or 3 years?
3.
Yeah.
3?
Is the collaborative as old as your youngest?
Because it'll be 3. Yes. Cause I was pregnant.
Yeah, I remember. Oh my God. I was actually just looking at the recordings or whatever. And I saw one of the thumbnails with your youngest. And I was like, oh my God, he was like,
he was
this
big. Because I feel like that's such an easy time. It's so funny with your first, you're like, oh my God, it's so hard. And then the second you're like, oh my God, this is the easiest time because they're just a potato. Literally.
Well, what are we going to talk about today?
I think this is a hot topic. Literally, I feel like every week in my DMs, I get a question about what supplements should I take? And I feel like this is an important discussion as practitioners of the most overrated and or misused supplements. Because I think, and I'm sure you can co-sign this, but when practitioners are newer, especially when they're more new in the functional space, I feel like they feel this over emphasis on supplements. That's probably the wrong way to say it. But I feel like they rely heavily on supplements as opposed to the foundations, which we talk ad nauseum about. And so I think it's an important discussion to kind of talk about these supplements. And we're not anti-supplements. We both use supplements as intended, as supplements to a healthy diet, lifestyle, et cetera. But I mean, most of us talk about it in the collaborative too. We'll have these clients come to us on a ridiculous amount of supplements, whether put on by a chiropractor, functional doctor, or self-put on, right? Because people are not on TikTok and Instagram and they're like, oh, well, this person had this problem, so I tried it too. Or of course now, AI, people are also doing that as well. And it's understanding when things are needed and when they're not. So do you want to start us off on some
appropriate use? Yeah. My personal bone to pick with the supplement over supplementation is DIM, diindol methane. I think that's
I cannot say that to save my life.
I think that's the full name of it. But this is a supplement that is touted as balancing your estrogen and hormone balance and hormonal acne and all of these things. And the thing about DIM is that it's really meant to push a certain pathway of estrogen metabolism. So the only way you can really know this is through a Dutch test. And basically what happens is you have 3 separate main pathways that your estrogen is metabolized through. On the Dutch test, it's green. I'll talk about it in simple terms. So it's green, red, and blue. And as I've described those, it's green means go, it's good. Red is kind of the caution, you don't want too much of it. And blue is good for the bones, bad for the boobs. When we start to see fibroids and things that shouldn't be there, they're there, but they shouldn't be. That's usually when we see a lot of estrogen being pushed down that quote unquote blue pathway. And that is actually the time that you want to be using DIM, and only if total estrogen is high, right? When you have too much estrogen going down that particular pathway, that's good for the bones, bad for the boobs, but you still have overall low estrogen, I would argue that that's still not the time that you want to use this. And I see so many women come to me on DIM So many women asking me about DIM in my DMs, in my question boxes on Instagram. And I think I've used DIM in the past 3.5 to 4 years that I've been doing this particular work. I think I've given it to 3 people, and it's so rampant.
What's also crazy is that this compound is found in things like broccoli sprouts and other foods. And this is where like we both get into the weeds of like, why is this happening in the first place? Supplements should be helping the foundational stuff that we're trying to do. And something like DIM, I feel like is just like you're missing the forest through the trees of like, there's a reason that someone is struggling with the detoxification of estrogen. Most people aren't consuming enough fruits and vegetables or fiber. Like we fix that and we have a better detox pathway for most people. They're pooping better, you know, their digestion is better, they're less bloated, whatever. Not everybody, obviously there's certain cases where that's not true, but yeah, I know, I agree. I think I usually
Yeah.
take people off of it when they come to me on it because I'm like, this, you're not even doing the basics. And now we're trying to throw like a firebomb on a system that like, is it, you're not sleeping well, you're not eating well, you're not working out well, like whether overdoing or underdoing it. And I think what you touched on is like, if it's not excess estrogen, it's just excess estrogen in the case of low progesterone. Like we're also
Right.
missing that whole issue too. Like, or is this just low hormones in general, which we don't want to get rid of all the hormones. We want to help improve the production and detoxification of the
And
hormones.
one thing that I would alert all of the practitioners to out there's a lot of supplements that aren't labeled DIM that have DIM in it. So when your people are coming to
True.
you and they're having hormone struggles, yes, I mean, we could go on for like hours about all the things that affect hormone health, but you definitely need to be checking all of their supplements for DIM, like a lot of these perimenopause or PMS balance or whatever it is that they're called. A lot of them have DIM in
Yes.
it. So you definitely want to be checking for that. Yeah. All right. Well, I
Absolutely.
don't want to beat the dead horse of DIM too much. So
Yeah, I feel like we could go on a whole episode on that,
next.
apparently. Another one we both see overused is oregano, and there is a time and a place for oregano or oregano oil when there's overgrowth, when there's SIBO, when there's certain types of SIBO. But we've both seen people, and I think we've talked about this in the collaborative a couple of times, of people who are just chronically on
No.
oregano oil. It is wild to me. And oregano, once again, serves a time and a place, especially when there's overgrowth, because oregano oil has been shown to help reduce that overgrowth. But you have to think that anything, especially at therapeutic doses, that is going to remove the bad things also likely is going to inhibit some of the good things as well. And we have to understand that herbs are not as potent as antibiotics, but it's not that they're not
Right.
over the long term, right? We have to use them in a controlled manner. So that might be 4 weeks up to 8 weeks. But if someone is continuously on it and they only feel good on it, right? Because I think that's what we hear is like, I only feel good on it. Oregano oil is not the cure. There's something else going on.
You don't have an oregano oil
No.
deficiency.
No, and bless you for taking that because
Yeah.
that's just potent.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So potent. I've had a lot of people come to me who just chronically take oregano, like you mentioned. And I wonder, like, how much of this is this actually just the problem that we've been disrupting the microbiome? Like, would you take an antibiotic for that long?
Well,
And again, that's not, well, some people might. It's not apples to apples, but at the same time, just that's definitely a no. If you don't already ask, here's another like takeaway for the practitioners. If you're not already asking like why they started taking the supplement and when, that's really important on the intake form because you may just see like, oh, they take magnesium, they take oregano, they take a vitamin D, but you're not getting all of the context of why did they start taking it? Did those things improve since they started taking said thing, right? These are really important either follow-up questions or things to make sure to include in your intake form.
Well, I think like I'm sure we've talked about on it here before, but like people have a lot of fear around like food reintroduction. I think people also have a fear associated with stopping certain supplements because maybe when they started taking it, they were very vulnerable and it was like the first thing that they felt helped them feel better. And so now they're like, well, no, this is what's helping me. But like Danielle said, it actually might, like, it's too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. And then is it disrupting? Like, it should be a very small segment of your protocol. And it should be done after a bunch of supportive work is done too. It should not be the first thing that's incorporated in someone's protocol because it is a very potent herb.
Yeah. Yeah. Agree. Along the same lines, the next one that we have listed is berberine.
Nature's
This
Ozempic.
oh oh oh
Oh my God.
kill me now. Murder both of us. Just set everything on fire. This now I don't have a problem with berberine. I use it in my protocols, mostly like for SIBO, blood sugar, time and a place, etc., etc. I think you would say the same thing, right? There's a time and a place. It's definitely helpful in some instances, but staying on it long term, it's really kind of the same
Yes.
like reiterations of oregano oil, right? It's an herb. It's pretty potent. I have a lot of people who have trouble with berberine when it's introduced, like reactions.
Yeah, I feel like I introduced it pretty late, and I feel like I used to use it more readily than I do now. But yeah, no, I don't have as many issues with it. But I think this is one that I started to see, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, when it started to become like quote unquote nature's Ozempic. Like it became like this big thing online. And I saw a lot more people on it. And I was like, what are we doing? And a lot of times it can cause lowered blood sugar. So it's also educating your clients on how to utilize it. Like if I have a client who has poor blood sugar and their A1C is high or their fasting insulin is high, but they're also experiencing a lot of crashes, I don't put them on it right away because they're likely to continue having that pattern. We should establish better blood sugar balance without the usage of it, and then use it as a supplement to what we are doing to encourage that continuation of blood sugar balance.
The way that you should use it is almost like it's in the name of what it's called, as in a supplement.
I think it's so fun. That's why I try to educate all my clients on. I'm like, we utilize supplements when we can't do it fully through diet or lifestyle, and based on what problems you're having. Berberine is it's very few and far between. I usually use inositol first with my fasting insulin clients before I move on to berberine because berberine is also an herb, so we know, or a plant compound, and we know that impacts the gut microbiome in a positive way for those who have overgrowth, but can be a negative way if done for too long or done to someone. Like if someone comes back with a GI map and they're completely depleted, their commensals are totally low, they're probably not going to respond well to this either. And so it's understanding like how to utilize it. And then also they recommend if you're using it long-term, you should be cycling it at least 3 months on, 1 month off, if not more, like off time. So it's also understanding the way in which to use it. And I think the way one of my colleagues always said, like the goal is to be more supportive than disruptive. And the functional space, I think it's getting better, but I feel like for a while it was like kill phase, like die off. And like, I think a lot of clients like fed into it because they were like, oh, it means something's happening, right? Which I think for those who are really sick, sometimes that can feel very comforting, but that's not really what we need to accomplish in order to see results. Most of my clients, I always warn them of potential symptoms so that they can alert me and we can taper. But like I would say 95% of my clients are not symptomatic with most of these products because we're using them once we are supportive and we're using them in small chunks.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. All right, next is a little bit of a different one. This I think people will find interesting. Zinc. You get a lot of people coming to me, especially in, quote unquote cold and flu season and preventing illness and immune boosting, yada, yada, yada. However, first of all, zinc can cause a lot of nausea. Especially in higher doses.
Especially at the high doses people are taking. Yes.
Dude, I see some people coming to me taking 30 milligrams a day.
Like 50. Yeah. I see 50 sometimes. I'm like, what are we doing? Why are they prescribed in that? That's a whole nother issue. I'm like, why are these in such high doses when like a 3 milligram might be appropriate for people?
And so I think that's one of the biggest problems is when people, I always say you should be looking for the hidden causes of issues. If you have a client who's having a lot of nausea, zinc is an example of this, or if they're having a lot of diarrhea, like looking for hidden sources of magnesium, et cetera, et cetera. But, zinc also, I mean, we could talk about like the iron balance and things like that too, that can become disrupted from long-term zinc use. especially I think in the short term is fine. Like if you have a cold and you want to take like a week or two's worth of a reasonable dose of zinc, right? Like reasonable people like, 10 milligrams, I think is relatively
Yeah.
reasonable of zinc bisglycinate, I think is the easiest, one of the easier absorbable forms.
That and
Picolinate. Yeah, yeah,
picolinate.
yeah.
Yeah, those are the two that I recommend. I mean, I think the problem, this is where I see it, is that just like you said, people take it as a preventative measure in cold and flu season. But truly, zinc and vitamin C in the same vein, the research shows that it doesn't prevent illness, it shortens duration and potentially severity of illness. So it's one of those things. This is where I try to educate my clients of it's okay to have these supplements on hand, and it's knowing when to use them. It's understanding that like I use zinc the second my kid is sick. I only have like I have a 2 week limit on it. Like I don't continue to take it for, from September to March when if you have young kids, like that sick season. So it's understanding when to use it. And then I also think it's educating people on like zinc is so important for so many different reasons, especially people who experience things like eczema and dry skin, but it's getting it through our diet. And a lot of people aren't getting enough through their diet. So it comes back to those foundations and those basics of like, we start incorporating foods like pumpkin seeds are honestly like, I think a win-win because most of my clients enjoy them. They taste good. They're super easy to add. You need a low amount to get a high amount of things like zinc amongst other nutrients in there. And so it's educating them too of like, zinc doesn't live just in a supplement. It also lives in nature and in our food. And if we can help educate them on that, now they have a better understanding. Okay, I get this through my food 90% of the time. And then when we're sick, it's something that I can take as a supplement to help reduce duration and severity of an illness. It's not something I take long term because it depletes copper. We know that to be true. And copper is important. There are some supplements like oyster zinc that does have a better ratio. And because it's coming from oyster, it's a little bit lower because it's more what's found in nature. So there's other ways to also spin this, but I could go on and on about zinc, but agreed. I have so many clients come to me and they're like, I'm like, when did you start this? Or why? Kind of like you said. I'm like, oh, well, last year when my kids got sick. And I'm like,
Okay.
it's been over a year. You've been on it for an entire year.
84 years. I can't.
Yeah, like, and I think a lot of clients don't even know. They just
Sure.
get into such a rhythm and a habit. And so I agree. It's important to ask. I always ask, like, do you think it's beneficial? What do you think it's doing for you? Because I think that meant kind of like I said with the fear around like oregano. I think that some people have it in their head of like, oh, this is keeping me healthy or this is the thing. And we have to rewire that of like, no. Supplements are not the thing that's going to cure you or fix you, but it can help support everything else that you're doing.
Yeah, totally. No, I mean, I agree with all that. And this kind of flows right into our next one, which is green powders, which I don't have anything against. I think there's some people out there who are like, they're like literally hissing cats at green powders. I don't really care that much, but I do think that they are extremely overrated and overused instead of people just eating whole nutrient dense foods. Like what are we doing?
They're expensive too. I think that like I agree. I think there's a time and a place for them. Like I've discussed with some clients, like for instance, like military families who their spouse is overseas and they have limited access to fresh fruits and vegetables. It's a great thing to keep up fiber and multivitamins if you can keep it accessible and it's shelf stable, right? Like if someone has trouble chewing or swallowing, like there are certain situations where I'm like, this is a no-brainer because we know that it's a more concentrated form of multi-nutrient or nutrients, micronutrients that we can't get. Like, what am I saying? I don't even know. But for the general public, for the majority of their life, I don't think it's necessary.
Y'all go lick a real vegetable before you start like
right, like evaluate why this is like why you think this is necessary. Yeah.
You need this.
Like,
yeah.
And I agree. I don't think it's
No,
a bad. I don't
totally
think they're
agree.
bad. I just think they're like mostly unnecessary.
Yeah, there are some people out there who get like so up in arms about it, and I'm definitely like, I don't know, I just feel kind of neutral about it, but and in the same breath I do think that it's overused. It's just like GLPs, like they're
like it's
and
and this I feel like the greens powder comes more from the like wellness influencer space. And I think, unfortunately, it's because things like
Yeah.
AG1 had such a big marketing budget that they're using people like Sean Johnson and I can't remember who else they use. And they're coming from this like wellness space of people who are already healthy. Like they're
Joe
going
Rogan.
to be healthy no matter if they take these
Yeah.
green powders or not. So I almost feel like it's just like people aspire to these people
Yeah.
who they follow. And they assume that, oh, well, that's what's keeping them healthy. No, these people, one, they have money, so they can afford a lot of things most of us can't. And two, like they're already eating healthy. Like they prioritize fruits and vegetables and water and exercise and all the things. So I think we have this false
Yeah.
equivalency to greens powders and health. And so I think it's understanding.
Totally.
And as a
Totally.
clinician, we need to
Yeah.
evaluate like, okay, we did all the work we possibly could with our client and they're still not getting enough fruits and vegetables. They have the budget to do it. It could totally make sense for somebody. I use Red's powder sometimes for clients who have a really low acromantia.
Polyphenols.
And no matter what we do, either they
acromantia.
hate all red fruits and vegetables or we just can't get enough and we can't get it up, then correct.
And that's usually temporary too. You know, like, okay, let's do this for a couple of
Correct.
months. Let's use it as a tool, right? As a tool in the toolbox, not, you know,
Yes.
hey, we're going to stay on this indefinitely. You know, another time I think greens
Sure.
powders are appropriate is like travel, you know, like travel days are hard to get fiber and things like that.
Yes.
So time and a place, y'all get the point. Next on the list is fat burners. Oh boy. You're just walking around with an elevated heart rate, not hungry.
Yeah, like it's just wild to me. I think what makes me mad too is like there's supplement companies that I like, and then I'll see that they push or promote this, and I'm like, this is just like a money grab.
They're cheap to
and
make.
It makes me so mad because the person's going to get
Yeah.
like, yeah, they're cheap, and they know that like the person's like, oh, I'm getting whey protein. Oh, fat burner. Yeah, that couldn't hurt. I could use that. And now they're like throwing it in their cart and taking something without because they already like know they like the supplement company. And they're like, okay, cool. And that's where I see it
Yeah.
utilized a lot. And that really
Same.
pisses me off. So I think it's also important to like ask your clients of like, have you ever taken one of these? What does that look like? How did you feel? But yeah, I agree. You're just hungry.
Yeah,
and
you're
caffeine-
just
like not hungry. and
you're
caffeinated.
just suppressing your appetite with
You're
with
vibing
yeah,
on
you're
different
literally
vibes.
vibrating because your heart rate is so fucking high. Anyway. Okay,
Uh,
biotin.
uh.
I think this one will surprise some people, and you put this one down. I agree with this as well because the hair, skin, and nails. This is so they emphasize hair, skin, and nails, and they throw it in a pink bottle and they market it to women that they need this, and it's like, no, you just need to eat meat
You could have just stopped it. You just need to eat. But yes, meat particularly.
or that in general.
I think, and also like this is what I hate so much is that, okay, we know biotin is important for things like hair, skin, and nails, but the amount they're putting in supplements,
energy
and then a lot of
drinks.
women will also be like taking, yeah, or like they want to take it separately because they're like, I'm taking a multivitamin, which has biotin in it, and then I'm also taking this hair supplement. And it's like,
No. Too much.
it's not necessary. It's not necessary. Like we know that eating enough, period, reducing stress, period, or managing stress will alone help with things like hair loss or preventing or stopping or delaying hair loss. Like
Yeah.
you don't need biotin to do that. And too much of a good thing, unfortunately, in most cases is a bad thing. Just because you pee it out doesn't mean it's not impacting you in some way.
Yeah,
shape,
I
or
feel like
form.
this is a little bit of a sidebar, but aligned with this conversation in that we see so many people peddling these hair loss supplements and this kind of goes in that biotin bucket, right? The hair, I can't believe neither of us put this on the list, but hair loss supplements, you probably just need to eat more food. If you're postpartum, it's normal. Like it will grow back. It's
the way they market to postpartum women.
I know
I just can't.
We could do
I'm
a-
only
we
with
could-
that because
we
we've
could do a
vented about that
whole,
enough. But
rant episode on the things that are peddled to post.
hair loss
Mhm.
and the marketing, or
Yeah.
that too.
And then we have a couple honorable mentions here. My favorite of the ones that you wrote down here are pre-workout because I don't know, maybe you should just be well rested.
Like, what are we doing? Right. Like, and also like
Yeah.
eat something instead of vibing on the
Beta-alanine.
caffeine vibes. Like, or have a cup of coffee.
Literally
Like-
vibrating on beta-alanine.
I took I did pre-workout once because
I've
I just
never
wanted to
had
know.
any.
I was like, I would just want to know what people are talking about.
Okay.
Do not. I mean, this was like I did this pre-kids. So like I tolerated caffeine way better before kids, probably because I was way
Mhm.
better rested and like I was way less stressed. I literally was like, I'm shaking. And I'm someone who like at that point I was probably drinking a couple cups of coffee, caffeinated coffee a day. And I was like, I was so unwell. Like I couldn't even focus on the workout. So the people who do it regularly, I'm like,
What dimension is your brain in?
how? Yeah, you really vibing really high. But yeah, it's just so
Yeah.
unnecessary, especially as a clinician evaluating clients' supplement intake. That's something that they might
Yeah.
not list because they don't think of it as like a
That's a good
pill,
point.
right? There's something that they just maybe they're one of those weird people who dry scoop it and shake it, Daniel. But that like it's checking in on things like that of like how are you fueling your exercise? Are you thinking about what you're doing before or after exercise? I find sometimes when I say that clients are like, oh yeah, like my creatine is mixed with like a pre, because creatine sometimes is in these pre
No.
or post workout supplements as well. So making sure you're checking kind of like the checking the dim, check the creatine, ask them what kind of creatine they're taking because they might be doing a combo product. And now all of a sudden they're taking 200 extra milligrams of caffeine on top of the 3 cups of coffee they're
Would
taking.
they
And
wonder why
like,
they're
if
seeing
we need that
sounds?
much caffeine to work out,
Like
yeah,
if synesthesia don't know
literally,
why.
like, good God, I
Oh,
could
I would
never.
die.
I would literally
I
vibrate out of my
can't do
body.
even like a half cup
Um,
anymore.
no, me neither. Just the older I get, the less I can do things.
It's a no for me, dog. I'm thinking that maybe this needs to be a separate question on my intake form in the exercise section. Like, do you
Yeah,
take any
I have a whole
pre-workout
section on
supplements?
exercise. Yeah.
Update the intake form again. So there's that. Okay, we have just a couple minutes left, and the two other honorable mentions we have here are iron and multivitamin.
So I put these
Uh,
on here because I think
I mean, you wrote those down,
it's
so I'll
kind of
let you.
going to
Yeah,
like the overrated, misused. I think there's a time and a place for both. I don't think that they are wrong, but I
yeah.
think they're wrongly utilized. Like I see women on iron indefinitely when we recycle 25 grams
So
of our
scary.
iron a day. And if we're not doing so, then it's somewhere. It's gone. It's somewhere. Unless someone is vegan, unless we know that they have anemia, it's something we should be very diligent about not using because it can also lead to things like constipation or nausea. The better type is bisglycinate, just like the zinc. But at the same time,
Mm,
we don't need, if people are eating meat and they're eating meat regularly, there's no need for an iron unless there's true iron deficiency anemia noted, unless they're in a state like pregnancy where there is higher likelihood of anemia, true anemia, and not just like B12 deficiency or folate deficiency, which are those are different causes, and just not indefinitely. Like unless someone is vegan, it is
yeah.
very rare for iron deficient anemia to be true. And so we just have to evaluate how long have they been on it? How do they feel on or off of it? What's their diet like? What's their digestion like? And we could go on and on. But it's really important to understand that this is not a long term or should not be used as a long term supplement. And then with multivitamins, the way I was thinking of this is
Correct.
like, so many people are just on like a one a day. And I'm like, most of that is just expensive pee. It's poor quality. And so it's like, is it better than nothing for some of the population? Maybe. But I just think it's like either we do better and we get them a better multivitamin, or we just revert to diet, which is what most people need anyway. And most people need improvement in their diet. So literally just by improving, like I have so many clients, especially moms, come to me, they're not eating fruit, which I completely understand because like my children eat all my fruit. We do that, all of a sudden you're getting the vitamin C you need, you're getting like the potassium you need. We don't need a multivitamin. So
Hmm.
it's not a no for everyone. It's
Yeah.
understanding context and understanding quality. Like, I don't know, poor quality multi, is it really worth it? Probably not.
Hard agree on all of that. All right, well, we are coming up on time here. So if you like this episode, make sure to click and subscribe and follow the podcast. And if you are a coach, practitioner, or trainer, make sure that you go check out unconventionalcollaborative.com. We're also on Instagram at unconventional.collaborative, and we will
Bye.
see you next week.